Welcome back everyone. Today I wanted to take a look at military conflict Vietnam. If you are or were a fan of CSGO at some point, but wish that aiming down sight was an option, then you might be interested in this game. Now, before we get into the video, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Boogie5, a good friend of the channel, and the sole provider of this game. He was kind enough to give me this game to try out and make an objective review and give my opinion on it, so make sure to check out his channel and I'll leave a link down below. He's been regularly giving out free Steam keys, so who knows, maybe you'll enjoy his content and win a cool game too. Also, I'm giving out a free copy to Military Conflict Vietnam. Stick around to the end and find out how to enter. Alright, on to the video. So, playing this game initially, I was surprised. I wasn't really expecting much in terms of gameplay, though this is my initial thought with any indie game that I try out. But after a few hours, I have to say, I really enjoyed it. The movement feels great, a bit tricky around corners, but that could be user error on my end, or large hitboxes on the characters. I feel like this game resembles CSGO in the movement department, but has sprinting added to it. Now, it's a limited sprint. You're given a stamina bar that restricts how long you can run for. What I found interesting is the character's reaction to running out of stamina. The character starts to breathe heavier the lower your stamina gets. It's a nice touch. Also, the stamina is impacted heavily when you're hurt. You won't be able to make a quick getaway if you're injured, so that's something to keep in mind when playing. Now, we're going to segue into the maps. I find that there aren't many maps. The game includes around 8 maps total. These are Depot, Embassy, NLF Outpost, USMC Camp, Battle of Saigon, Siege of Hue, Port of Quy Nhon, I'm gonna butcher that one, and Third Field Hospital. Considering the maps I just listed, they're all decent and manageable. The size is just right from what I experienced. I enjoyed some of the maps more than others. I found that Embassy and Battle of Saigon were my least favorite, while Hospital and Siege were the ones I enjoyed the most. But your mileage may vary though. I know that only 8 maps might seem like a limited list, but I found that for now, getting the gameplay dynamics within the overall mechanics within the maps is the most important thing to do, which at the moment this game seems to have down well. Adding more maps to the list may and can happen. It just takes some time to develop good map layouts on good game foundations that this game currently has. But before I move on from the map section, there was a game I joined from the server list, and the map I played on wasn't listed. It was an odd map. From the gameplay in the background, it seems like a heavy jungle map. Maybe it's a modded or user-created map. The game does have a workshop mode that allows users to upload maps and add-ons, so the modded theory doesn't seem so far-fetched. But if anyone knows what this map is, please let me know. I'm genuinely curious to what this was or what I got put into. So, the gun mechanics. I actually have no issue with them. They work well. The TTK reminds me of early COD games where you didn't need to dump America's ammo reserve into one player to get the job done. The aiming down sight is nice. Most guns have iron sights. I know some people aren't big fans of them, but they work well. I find that most have decent visibility, enough to allow the player a good view of what's in front of them. There are a few weapon iron sights that I'm not a fan of, like the PPS-43, Carl Gustav, and the Scorpion. You know, the micro iron sight style. Though this isn't the game's fault, it's more of a personal preference on sights. I like a larger sight if I'm being honest. Now, the snipers, they feel decent as well. Most of them have great visibility. Obviously, some are harder to see out of than others, but that's fine. There are many choices for each type of player there are out there, and the TTK on them is good. There's only been a few times where one of my shots did partial damage and required a second shot. Now, taking into consideration the gun mechanics, this leads me into the recoil. When playing, I found that most guns don't have insane recoil. Most were manageable, and the spray patterns weren't too random, so they're easy to learn and get used to. I find that to be important because there isn't a huge skill curve when trying to play the game. There's a challenge, sure, but it doesn't deter the player from wanting to keep playing this game. There are some weapons with aggressive recoil, and those are, to me at least, what I experienced: the BAR, STG-44, ZF-4, and that's only because the actual gun has a scope on it. The SGG without the scope is pretty good and manageable, and the M60. Those are the only ones I found myself having issues controlling the recoil, but overall it's not bad, and to be honest, it's an enjoyable time playing with the guns on this game. Now, moving away from the mechanics onto the weapon availability, they have a large variety, but not too large. It's not an overwhelming list. They range from World War II weapons to Vietnam era weapons, so anywhere from 1955 or slightly earlier to 1975-ish, so it's fairly diverse. One thing that I did like about the weapon list and how it's set up is the faction-specific list. For example, the Viet Cong has Russian/German weaponry, while American has obviously American weaponry. Now, they don't intertwine where both sides can use all of them regardless of faction. Now, doing this and separating both factions and limiting the guns for each side adds the appeal to choose a side and compromise on the weaponry list. It's not a free-for-all. Nobody has free reign of all guns. So, from all of the weapons, I found these to be my favorite from each category. On the American side and the Viet Cong side, respectively, the assault were the M16-203. Yep, You guessed it, that's the one with the noob tube, and yeah, I am that kind of player sometimes. And the AK-47. The meta class was the Thompson and the M76, as well as the MP40 and the PPSH-41. Obviously, who doesn't want to play with the PPSH? You can never go wrong with the PPSH. Now, the gunner class was the BAR, and even though this thing has aggressive recoil and a recoil pattern compared to some of the others, I still found it to be fairly enjoyable, and I'm a sucker for the BAR, to be honest. And for the Viet Cong side, I chose the RPD. Again, you could never go wrong with this gun. It's been a fan favorite of mine since the Modern Warfare 2 days. Now, the snipers. I found the M40, Kar 98K, and the Mosin Nagant to be quite nice on most maps. I just had a lot of fun with these snipers. Most of them were one-shot kill like I mentioned before, and every now and then I had a small hiccup with it not doing full damage and requiring a second shot. But that's nonetheless, it's still a great gun, and it's still a great set of guns for both sides. So moving on to the Engineer and Radio Man class. You have a large selection of weapons for both of these classes, but hear me out. I liked the M870 on the American side and the Fusil Robust on the Viet Cong side. Now, these are shotguns. The M870 is a great pump action shotgun, and the Fusil is a fantastic double barreled. It reminds me of Battlefield 1, if I'm being honest with you. There's just something about having a girthy double barreled in a game that's oddly satisfying when you use it. That one shot kill is like a chef's kiss, to be honest with you. So from the weapons, I have no complaints. I actually found them to be fairly well-rounded. Like I mentioned, the TTK is great. Being able to nail down TTK in a game like this is quite hard. There are many variables that can be implemented in a game that throw the entire experience off. So being able to nail that down was my first indication that I was going to enjoy this game, right? Over the first few minutes of playing, that's what I noticed, and I think they've nailed it down. So kudos to the dev team behind this game. Looking back at everything I just covered, I like this game. I like the Vietnam setting. I know that there are other games set in this era of war, but what the people over at Dust Fade, the dev team, have done with this title, I think it's pretty good. They have a great foundation and elements that make a great shooter. I can see this game easily reaching and attracting more players as it grows slowly and adds to those fundamentals I just mentioned earlier. I know focusing on the playability and performance should be priority number one, and most games don't do that. They put out unfinished projects that just don't run well and they feel janky, just like Battlefield 2042. It was a janky game that nobody liked, and it was just dead for quite some time until they started rolling out updates, but that's not necessarily the point, right? If it's a AAA title. For a small indie game like this, it's an acceptable circumstance, but seeing that they nailed it on their first try or on their first run, since the game has been out for about a year, it's honestly quite impressive. But with that said, I do think that updating the visuals might go a long way as well. It isn't necessary to have a good game, but once it's running good and you have those foundational elements dialed in, it might add some value to it down the line. And I'm not necessarily sure how hard it might be to update the graphics, but that's just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. But overall, the 15 hours that I put into this game trying to make this video and taking my time to really feel the guns, feel every single map, and get a sense of what this game would be like was pretty enjoyable, and I still like it. So I'm really happy that I was able to get a code on this game and not necessarily feel like it was a drag to play the game. It's always refreshing when you get a game that runs really, really well. And like I said, for it being an indie game, they kind of hit the nail on the head on this one, so I'm kind of happy to see that. So moving away from the actual review, here's how to enter to win a copy of this game. Just leave a comment expressing what you liked the most about this game and what it can do better based on this review. And let me know if you've actually played this game in the past, and if so, what attracted you to it. I'll choose someone at random and announce the winner on the community tab on this channel within a week. If you're the lucky commenter who wins, I'll be in touch and I'll message you directly. But with that said, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this review as much as I did making it. And if you did, consider subscribing for more content like this. There are a few other projects that I want to cover, and I'm trying to grow this channel around indie games. So hopefully I can get in contact with more companies and more collaborations that would allow me to explore games like this. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.